Welcome. My name's Arna, and today the discussion centers around Active's inventory management system. As a preface to this, I wanted to point out the purpose of this video, which is to provide detail on how a manager does inventory management by example, and then use these examples to show inventory management as plainly as possible, and to convey the advanced nature of the Active inventory management system, which has been tailored for wineries and distilleries. Finally, to show what is going on behind the scenes. Inventory management is the supervision of non-capitalized assets and stock items. Inventory management supervises the flow of items from one location to another and eventually to the point of sale. A key function of inventory management is to keep a detailed record of each new, existing, or returned item as it enters or leaves a location, whether it's physical or virtual. And finally, inventory management is the same regardless of a merchant's size or type. In inventory management, an inventory movement is requested, then approved, picked up from one location, and received at another. So the basic concept is quite simple. Now, what is an inventory movement? Inventory movement is used to track the movement of inventory items from one location to another. So it leaves one location, enters another. Inventory movements are fundamental to managing stock, doing your accounting, taxes, and compliance. And inventory movements are either transactions, sales, or inventory transactions, which comprise of adjustments, disposals, purchases, restock, and transfers. Now we're going to be using four terms that I wish to define. First is on hand. The on hand quantity is the number of an item that is physically located in a location at the current time. The allocated quantity is the number of an item that has been designated to sales orders from a specific location and has been paid for, but has not yet been picked up or shipped. The available quantity is the quantity of an item that is available to be allocated to new orders. This quantity is the difference between the on-hand and the allocated quantities. And finally, on order, the on-order quantity is the quantity of an item that has been requested and has been approved in the inventory transaction process. So Active supports two kinds of inventory transactions, and they can be either advanced or simple. So the advanced type, Active supports inventory transactions that are required to go through a process and approval, a request and approval process. Picked up logging and delivery logging. This includes pickup and delivery names and signatures. Now, because this can be cumbersome, Active also supports various quick transfers and adjustments. We will be showing you both methods, but please also refer to another video that we have called POS Inventory Transfers. Before we proceed, I wanted to show you the documentation resources that are available on the subject of inventory management. We have our learner's guide and a user's guide. Let's take a look at the Learner's Guide. The Learner's Guide is available on our website. It is a very condensed version of the manual, and this is the chapter we're going to be going through here today, chapter or lesson number 9. Let me just scroll through. You can see that it is a manual that's designed with lots of graphics to make it easy. And then we have the online manual, which is available here under this icon with the question mark. I'm going to push that. It will take me to the topic of the list that I was currently selected on, which happened to be inventory, and here is my manual on the inventory and the various aspects of advanced inventory management. Now I will demonstrate inventory management by showing various combinations of the inventory movement process for just one inventory item. And we'll be showing inventory transactions and transactions, i.e. sales. So let me bring back the manager. And here is a list and window of my inventory. We're going to just do one item today. So what I've called is folding maps. So let's create a folding map inventory item. So we'll call a Napa Valley folding map we're going to hand out. So we'll call it inventory. It's going to be merchandise. Sales category is also merchandise. Give it a name, a description. This is coming from this map company by, they'll sell them at $10 and they cost $3. We don't need item counting, and let's save it. So now we have an inventory item, a folding map. Now it has no stock. We don't have any stock locations. So let's do that first. Let's create a stock location, and we're going to put it in, the first one we'll make is the warehouse, and we'll just make an adjustment to put 10 of them in here and hit save. So now we have a stock location. So let's change the view. Stock location, you can see here is the demo warehouse. It has 10 on hand and 10 available to sell. Now this is the inventory stock window, the middle one, and the bottom one, the inventory transaction window. Notice that the inventory stock for the demo warehouse is also 10 and 10. Let's refresh this window, and there you can see an adjustment. This is the adjustment we just made for the 10 that we inserted. So this is, we added 10. This is the inventory transaction that we're looking at. There are no signatures or names, just one single date, because that was a quick adjustment just by entering in the number manually, which created this one transaction, inventory transaction automatically. And you can see the stock levels and the location. Now let's show you the movement. So we have a movement here. I change the view to movement detail. I'm going to do the same here. And the movement in the stock window shows a movement first into the on order, and then from on order into the on hand. So there's, although we did this quick transfer using just entering in a number, it generated two movements and an inventory transaction. Okay, now let's reset our views back to the stock values. And we need to create another location, a stock location for our inventory. We want to be able to sell that out of Napa as well. So let's go back to this tab stock, and I'm going to go create, and we'll say Napa. This time I'm not going to put any kind of number into this field. I'm going to leave it at 0. So I hit save, close, and you'll see that I have another location, inventory stock location called Napa. There's nothing there, and also in my inventory stock window it appears and there's no stock available there. And in inventory transactions, let's just refresh it to see if anything automatic happened, and no, which is what we expected. So now let's do a quick transfer. We did a quick transfer in Active Club Manager. Now we're going to do one on the POS. We're going to transfer 4 maps from the demo warehouse to the Napa tasting room. So here's the POS, and I am logged into the warehouse. So let's go to Tools, Inventory Transfer, and open up my Artwork menu and see if I find my folding map. No, it is not there. So I need to go back to Active and go to my demo warehouse location, which I could do directly here, and put it on the cart by adding it to the artwork heading. Well, let's put it in the merchandise heading. That's probably not a good idea because I don't think that's been set up. So I'm going to just put it in artwork. And we'll do the same. We'll click on Napa and do the same there. So both of these now have been set up to display in the artwork menu. So let's refresh our list here. And there we have our Napa Valley folding map. We're going to add 1. But we wanted to say, 4 did we say? We're going to move across, so there's 4. And I'm going to select that we're going to move it over to Napa. So it's from Demo Warehouse to Napa. And all I have to do is hit transfer. And then that's done. Let's have a look what happened in Manager. So on the inventory, we're looking at stock, and you can see Napa now has 4. Let's go to the inventory stock window, refresh that, and you can see the same numbers apply. And let's look at our inventory transaction window, refresh that, and voila, here comes another transaction automatically. Let's open it up, and you can see this was a quick transfer from the POS, and you have one person's name who was logged in, one date, and then 4 of the inventory items. Of course, there could have been others as well. We just transferred those 4 maps. Okay, so let's have a look at what this means in movement. So we'll go to the movement detail here, and you can see that 4 maps were transferred into Napa. And let's go to this one, refresh that. Oh, sorry, I meant to change it to detail. And here are all the movements associated with that one inventory transaction. Again, you get one going into the on order column, which is this one, and then finally onto the on hand column. So there's 2 movement records for that one adjustment. So again, just like the other quick transfer that we did from manager, here we are doing it from the POS, which resulted in 1 inventory transaction and 2 movements. Okay, let's set these views back to showing stock. And we want to create another location. We are going to go for Healdsburg. So this time I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to actually do it from stock location, add a new stock location. The inventory is going to be the Napa map. We're going to put it in Healdsburg. And we're not going to set any quantity for it as well. Now if I refresh this view, you'll see I have Healdsburg is now included in our list of stock locations for the map. And if I look at the inventory transactions, nothing should have changed, and nothing has changed. So this time we're going to do a transfer from the warehouse to Healdsburg. We'll transfer 5. So let's make a transfer. Right click, new record. Here's our transfer. So let's do a transfer. We're going to go from the warehouse to Healdsburg. We'll move, we have 6 available, so let's just move 4. Let's go with 5, so it's different than Napa. And let's save it. Okay, so having created a request, let me open this up again so you can see. I have requested a transfer. It has not been approved, it has not been picked up, and it has not been received. So I want to show you what happens as it goes through this process. So let's go to the POS. That's the Healdsburg POS. That's the warehouse POS. go over to the inventory transactions, and here we can see that the demo warehouse to Healdsburg request is sitting there. And I'm going to hit the approve button. Okay, so all I've done is approve it. Now if I go back to our manager, let's have a look at the numbers. So you'll see 5 have been allocated. One is now left available, but nothing has happened to Healdsburg yet. So the next thing to do is go back to the POS and sign that it's been picked up. So it's Greg W. and we'll sign now it's been picked up from the warehouse. Let's go back to manager. Let's refresh this window and this window, and you can see that the Healdsburg location now has 5 on order. So they're on order. Let's go back to here, and you can see the same happening in this window. I'm going to sort this by the location so they're ordered in the same order. And now let's refresh the transaction, inventory transaction. I'm going to open it up, and you can see there is the pickup signature. Let's examine the movement. So those 5 moved out of the warehouse. You can see that in this column here. 5 left the warehouse. And let's have a look at the movements in our stock. And the warehouse shows that movement of the 5. See the numbers there. Let's set it back to stock. And now we'll go back to our POSs. And now at Healdsburg, let's go to Tools, Inventory Transactions, and there we have the picked up transaction. Now I have just received these 5 maps. Push there. So Fred. And sign. And let's go back into Manager. Refresh this window. Healdsburg now has 5. The stock shows the same data, and if we refresh the transaction, you can see that Fred's name appeared, and we have now 2 signatures. Let's have a look at the movements. So there's the 5 moving from the warehouse into Healdsburg. Do the same here. The movements in stock are always, there's much more of them because it's always recording the movement from a state to a state. So it's on order. It goes from on order to on hand and so on. Let's open that up in full screen so you can see the numbers. So there are it's sorted by the location, and there are the numbers. So that was a transfer. Now let's spin our views back to stock. And this time we are going to do a purchase. So the warehouse is low on maps. So let's click on our inventory transactions and we'll do a new record. And this time we're going to do a purchase. And we're going to purchase from the map company, and we're going to deliver this to the warehouse. And what we're going to do here is indicate the product and the quantity. So let's go for a dozen. Let's pick a baker's dozen so it's a clear number. Okay, so now we have an inventory transaction here. And let's hop onto the POS. And find there it is. And the maps, the baker's dozen of maps has arrived. So let's sign for that. Greg does that. Let's go back to Manager. And we'll see we have now 14. On hand. Same number appears here. In our inventory transaction, there's the 13 that we purchased. Let's do it one more time. This time I'm going to go a little slower. New record. We'll do a purchase from the map company to the warehouse. We'll just go with 6 this time. And save it away. And let's have a look at our numbers. So you should see there are 6 on order now. Here too. 6 on order. So we have 14 on hand, 6 on order. Let's go back to the POS. There is the purchase. They just arrived. Another attempt at writing Greg. back here. You'll now see in the inventory window, we now have 20. And in the stock window, we have 20. And you can see the inventory transaction with Greg having received it. And this is the transaction we did earlier, where Greg, with a different signature, received it. So let's have a look at the movement. We're getting a lot of movement data now. Scroll through these numbers for you. And here, let's have the movement detail. And there also you can see the in and the out, each transaction that happened. All right, let's spin our views back to stock. And this time, I'm going to show you a simple transfer directly on an inventory stock item in Manager. So let's increase the Napa stock. And I'm just going to literally go in here and change the number. I'm going to change it to 7 and just say save. So it is now 7 in Napa, 7 in Napa. If I look at my inventory transactions and do a refresh, here comes one that was automatically created, which is a adjustment. No signatures, no names, one date, one person. Simplistic way of doing a transfer, but nevertheless you have everything is just the same. The movements are recorded the same. This is the 2 movements to Napa because it was an adjustment. And let's have a look at the movements on the inventory. And it made the adjustment based upon the difference of what was and the new number that you provided. Let's do that one more time. This time I'm going to go to Napa and change the number to 3. So I'm going to make it smaller. Let's have a look at the adjustment. See, is now the transaction is inventory transaction is 4. The value on hand is 4. I'm sorry, 3 and 3. The adjustment was 4. Now we're going to do a sale and see how that affects our numbers. So let's go to the POS and we'll go to Napa. And we'll buy a map. Buy one map. will pay for that map. Now let's have a look what happened at the inventory level. So I bought a map in Napa. You can see it's down at 2 now. Same with the stock levels. And there was no inventory. If I refresh the inventory transactions, there's no inventory transaction because that was done as a transaction, a sale. So let's have a look at the movements. And you can see it shows that for Napa there was a point of sale transaction 4160 and quantity out was 1. Look at the movements in the stock in Napa, and you can see again we have, instead of the transaction referring, or the movement referring to a inventory transaction, it is now referring to a transaction, which is a sale. And we have this movement of 1. Okay, let's reset these to the stocks. Now we've shown you how to create stock, one stock record at a time, either from the inventory list or the inventory stock list. Let's show you how you would create many stock entries. So you would highlight the items that you want to create stock for. This could be 1 or 100 or 1,000. I'm just going to pick 1 so it's easy to follow. Then you go to Actions, Create Inventory Stock. And here we're going to create a location, and we will pick shopping cart. Now, you do have the ability, when you would first import data, that you could transfer information down to the stock, like the stock levels, and also other configuration data. We're not going to bother with that. We're just going to create the stock. So it's now submitted that, because it could be many records. It submitted that to run as a job, which is now finished. So if I refresh here, we have shopping cart, no stock, shopping cart, no stock. And if I go to my inventory transactions, there'll be another one here, which is a simple adjustment that was made. In this case, for the number 0. So that is a tool when you want to create stock en masse. I'm going to minimize this window and resize these. And we're going to look at inventory movement again. So here's inventory movement and inventory movement. Now this has moved the stock to be at the top. So let's close this window, reopen it, and that will be on top. So movement detail, one inventory item only. Let's have a look at all the movements in the last 15 days. So this shows the quantity in, the quantity out, the values, the transactions that that created this movement. And you can also look at a total of all this, so you don't have to look at all that detail. So this is the movements in total. And then we can do the same. So these are the movements in the last 15 days. And I can also say, okay, let's look at the ones only out of the warehouse. Now there's another important feature, which is, let's maximize this up again, and we're going to pick the daily stock levels. Let's pick a search for daily stock levels in the last 180 days. And then we'll pick the view daily stock levels. I'm going to sort by this date. Then I'm going to sort by the name. So this shows me the date and the quantities, both on hand, allocated, and available in order for each one of those days. So every time there is a movement of an item, it will then get stamped with a stock level at that date. So you get one per day, per inventory item, per stock location. Scroll through these. Let's hop over to inventory transaction. We have something similar here. And I want stock levels in the last 180 days. Stock levels view here. So this shows you the stock levels by location. And again, I could sort by the date, and then the location, and then the name. And you can see similar detail. And I could pick the stock levels just at the warehouse. And I thought you might find it interesting to see how these searches were done. The first one we looked at was the stock levels in the past 180 days at the warehouse. So let's see how that was defined. So you can see the location is set to the warehouse. And then on the inventory tab, we have set the type of inventory to be inventory. And then on the stock movement tab, we have set the date range to be the past 180 days. Now let's pick this other search we had, which was just 180 days, no specific location, just to compare. The data on this tab is the same, this tab is the same, but on the General tab there is no location name. And then we had the search for the movements in the last 15 days. See how that's done. So on the General tab, no information at all. Inventory tab, set it to I just want inventory as opposed to all the other types. And then on the stock level movement tab, you'll see there I have filled in the movement date to be the past 15 days. Now I can select that search from here. Now we have the 15 days at the warehouse, and you can see the difference is that the location has been filled in. So this is an important tab. This allows you to provide date ranges for the stock level and the movement views. Now let's hop over to inventory. It has something similar. Let's pick the movement in the past 15 days. So on the General tab we have the type inventory, and then on the stock tab is where we put the past 15 days. And then for the daily stock levels, past 180 days, you can see the numeric date range move down to the field below. So that's how to do these searches. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you the next time.